The film begins in 1967, depicting a pregnant woman hurriedly taken to a hospital. She exhibits severe neck bleeding, suggesting an animal attack. In a desperate move, doctors conduct an emergency C-section to rescue the baby, yet tragically, the woman doesn't survive. 30 years pass, and the narrative transitions to a young man named Demise, accompanied by his girlfriend in a car. They venture into an underground nightclub in Los Angeles, where Demise becomes the center of eerie gazes upon entering. Suddenly, blood showers down from the sprinklers, intensifying the unsettling atmosphere. The attendees of the party revel in delight, their jubilant cheers filling the atmosphere, yet Demise is seized by a sudden surge of panic. It's in this critical moment that a startling revelation dawns upon us. Everyone within the club is, in fact, a vampire. Gradually, their focus shifts towards Demise, foretelling an impending assault. Just as danger looms, our central character, Blade, makes a dramatic entrance, donning a sleek ensemble of black leather. As the narrative unfolds, we come to understand that Blade is none other than the same child we encountered in the initial scene, now transformed into a formidable vampire hunter. Blade swiftly counters the vampire's onslaught with his specialized weaponry, effortlessly dispatching them. In due course, all the vampires meet their demise or hastily retreat, leaving only Quinn, a robust vampire. Quinn attempts to spring a surprise attack on Blade, only to meet a fiery demise instead. Moments later, the sound of approaching police sirens fills the air, prompting Blade to depart the scene with calm composure. In the subsequent scene, the police transport Quinn's charred remains to a nearby hospital. Here, a morgue technician named Curtis and a hematologist named Dr. Karen Jensen meticulously scrutinize the body, uncovering a multitude of anomalies, including unusually developed jaw muscles. As they dissect the test findings, Quinn abruptly reanimates, launching a frenzied assault on both doctors. Swiftly, the vampire dispatches Curtis with a fatal bite. However, before he can do the same to Karen, Blade intervenes. With seamless precision, Blade severs one of Quinn's limbs, prompting the vampire to flee in desperation. Blade then escorts Karen to a secure refuge, where his long-standing associate, Abraham Whistler, tends to her wounds. Administering a mixture of garlic essence and silver nitrate, Abraham maintains a guarded hope for her recovery, pegging the odds at 50-50. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a cadre of vampires convene to discuss Blade's audacious attack on their kin. Deacon Frost, a youthful vampire, advocates for the vampire's direct dominion over humans, regarding them merely as a sustenance source. In contrast, an elder vampire named Dragonetti leans towards maintaining a harmonious coexistence. Dragonetti harbors disdain for Frost, perceiving him as impure-blooded, having attained his vampiric state through the bite of another. The following morning, Karen awakens and explores the confines of the secure haven. During this time, she observes Abraham administering Blade with a mysterious blood serum. Later, Abraham divulges that he and Blade have been conducting a covert campaign against vampires, employing weaponry tailored to exploit their elemental vulnerabilities, such as sunlight, silver, and garlic. Recognizing that Karen now bears the mark of a vampire's bite, both Abraham and Blade implore her to depart the city. Subsequently, Karen returns to her apartment and begins the task of packing her belongings. As she readies herself to leave, she is confronted by Krieger, a police officer ensnared in servitude to a vampire master. Krieger attempts to assail her, only to be swiftly subdued by Blade, who discerns a distinctive tattoo on the back of his neck. Blade promptly identifies it as the emblem of Deacon Frost. Choosing to release Krieger, Blade harbors the hope of trailing him to another vampire establishment. Following this encounter, Blade and Karen discreetly tail Krieger to a clandestine subterranean club. In that place, they encounter Pearl, a vampire of considerable girth who serves as a keeper of records. They subject him to the harsh glare of a UV light, coercing him to divulge information. Initially, Pearl staunchly refuses, asserting he'd prefer death to betrayal. Yet when the searing UV light begins to sear his skin, he relents. Pearl discloses that Frost harbors ambitions of orchestrating a ritual employing 12 pure-blooded vampires to rouse the blood deity La Magra. Empowered by this revelation, the pair delves deeper into the vampire archives, poring over pages excerpted from the ancient vampire scriptures. Before long, they find themselves ensnared in an ambush orchestrated by a faction of vampires under Quinn's command, who has since regenerated his previously severed hand. Quinn is resolute in his quest for vengeance, but he swiftly discerns that Blade maintains a covert radio connection in his ear. Shortly thereafter, Abraham arrives on the scene, unleashing a hail of gunfire upon the vampires. Amidst the ensuing pandemonium, Blade severs Quinn's remaining hand. Seizing a propitious moment, the trio boards a passing subway car, effecting their escape. Upon their return to the safe haven, Abraham unveils the full account of Blade's origin to Karen. He recounts discovering Blade on the streets preying upon the homeless. According to Abraham, Blade represents a singular fusion of human and vampire attributes, wielding the supernatural strengths of vampires while being impervious to their typical vulnerabilities, save for the need for human blood sustenance. Abraham also discloses that he's been formulating serums to temper Blade's cravings, yet Blade's physiology is starting to exhibit resistance. Later that same evening, Abraham receives word that his attempt to cure Karen has proven ineffective, and she stands on the precipice of undergoing the transformation into a vampire. Despite this dire prognosis, Karen remains resolute in her determination. She makes her way to the hospital where she was once employed, procuring laboratory equipment to embark on a quest to find a remedy for both herself and Blade. As she delves into her experimentation with the anticoagulant EDTA, Karen stumbles upon a startling revelation. When mixed with vampire blood, it induces a violet reaction. Recognizing the potential potency of this discovery, she administers it to Blade, envisioning it as a formidable weapon against the vampire foes. Meanwhile, at the vampire stronghold, Quinn faces stern reprimand for his repeated failures. Frost directs him to venture out once more with the mission of capturing Blade alive. This directive leaves Quinn perplexed, as his boss and other vampires have long sought to end Blade's life, but none have succeeded thus far. Subsequently, Frost and his cohort seize Dragonetti, transporting him to a beach just prior to sunrise. There, they forcibly extract the elder vampire's fangs, while shielding themselves with sunscreen, dark attire, and motorcycle helmets. Dragonetti is left to meet his demise under the searing rays of the sun. Following this macabre act, Frost confronts the remaining members of the Vampire Council, insisting on the voluntary participation of 12 individuals for his ambitious La Magra project. In the ensuing scene, while Blade ventures out to replenish his hunting supplies, Abraham and Karen engage in a discussion regarding her latest endeavor to devise a cure for vampire bites. Karen exudes confidence in the potential efficacy of her new formula for herself, yet harbors uncertainties about its impact on Blade, given his unique vampiric nature. Nevertheless, her determination to free him from his bloodthirst remains unwavering, even if the process extends over the course of years. As their conversation continues, Frost and his cohorts abruptly breach their secure sanctuary. Though Abraham endeavors to retaliate with his specialized firearm, he is swiftly overwhelmed and subdued. The malefactors then abduct Karen and make a hasty escape. A short while later, Blade returns to find Abraham in a state of profound incapacitation. He teeters on the precipice of death, succumbing to the vampiric infection. In his final moments, he imparts crucial information about Frost's ambitious La Magra project, emphasizing Frost's relentless pursuit of Blade's blood. Abraham beseeches Blade to exercise caution, emphasizing that the fate of humanity rests upon his shoulders. With a heavy heart, he seizes Blade's weapon and takes a drastic and irreversible step, driven by the fear of succumbing to vampirism himself. Enveloped in a tempest of rage, Blade breaches Frost's stronghold, dispatching every adversary who dares to obstruct his path. He assails the vampires with EDTA, causing them to swell and burst into a gruesome shower of blood. Finally, Blade arrives at Frost's inner sanctum, only to be confronted by a woman who addresses him by the name Eric, indicating a familiarity that sends a shockwave of astonishment through him. In a startling revelation, we learn that this woman is none other than Blade's mother, reborn as a vampire, and now serving under Frost's command. As Blade grapples with the weight of this revelation, Frost and his cohorts appear, taking him captive. It's in this critical moment that Frost unveils himself as the very vampire who had bitten Blade's mother while she was carrying him. Subsequently, Blade and Karen find themselves imprisoned within a foreboding, lightless cell. In this somber confinement, Blade inquires of Karen whether she has made progress with her experiment for a potential cure. She elucidates that if successful, the cure could potentially strip away all of his extraordinary strength and regenerative abilities. However, it would also liberate him from the relentless thirst for blood, rendering him entirely human. Soon after, Blade is overpowered and transported to the Temple of Eternal Night, where Frost intends to carry out the summoning ritual for La Magra. Meanwhile, Karen is cast into a pit, destined to face her former colleague, Curtis, who is now metamorphosed into a grotesque, decaying creature reminiscent of a zombie. Curtis launches an assault on her, but through sheer determination, Karen manages to mount a counterattack and ingeniously engineer her escape from the pit. In the ensuing scene, Blade is ensnared in an immense torture apparatus, his blood systematically drained. As the ritual commences, the Council's 12 members meet their end, their essences consumed by Frost, catalyzing his transformation into La Magra, the Blood God. A while later, Karen successfully liberates Blade from the tormenting contraption. Though he appears profoundly weakened, recognizing that time is of the essence and there's only one way to restore Blade's vigor, Karen implores him to partake of her own blood. He initially resists, but faced with no alternative, he eventually draws sustenance from her neck. In remarkably swift fashion, Blade undergoes a resurgence, exuding a newfound vitality and strength. However, by this juncture, Frost has completed the ritual, securing the formidable power of La Magra. Prior to his final confrontation with Frost, Blade's mother unexpectedly emerges, engaging him in a fierce skirmish. As Blade teeters on the precipice of ending her undead existence, she attempts to sway him emotionally, invoking the powerful bond between mother and child. Unyielding to her manipulation, Blade ultimately deals a fatal blow, bringing an end to her unending existence. He proceeds to dispatch the remaining vampire sentinels, reclaiming his iconic sword and dispatching Quinn with a swift decapitation to retrieve his cherished sunglasses. Meanwhile, Karen lends her support by utilizing a garlic-laden mace, causing vampires to erupt in explosive demise. After a period of relentless combat, Blade finally stands face to face with Frost, setting the stage for an intense battle of unmatched ferocity. Blades clash with dazzling precision as the adversaries lock in combat. At a crucial juncture, Blade severs Frost's limb and cleaves him in two, but the form of the Blood God promptly regenerates. Faced with an impasse, Blade seizes a packet of EDTA vials, hurtling them at Frost, administering multiple injections across his formidable form. The strategy proves effective, and due to an overdose of EDTA, Frost's body undergoes a grotesque swelling before erupting into a colossal shower of blood, marking the definitive end of his existence. In the aftermath of this decisive moment, Karen extends an offer to cure Blade, but he declines, citing the persistent presence of numerous other vampires. He asserts that his mission isn't complete until every last one is dealt with. Blade suggests that if Karen genuinely wants to aid him, she could devise an enhanced version of the serum, enabling him to continue his relentless campaign against vampires. In the closing scenes, Blade is depicted confronting a vampire in the city of Moscow. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching and have a good day.